My name is Ethan Ruby. I own, founder and CEO of one of the 4 production facilities in Connecticut, Theraplant. I'll give you a little bit about my background so you can understand why I am doing what I'm doing. I graduated from college in '97, ran my own equities trading firm. I was hit by a car and paralyzed in November of 2000. I have picked my life back together in bits and pieces and have dedicated my life now to kind of making my life more than just about my personal life. I was able to invent a product, kind of very indicative of where I'm going with the medical marijuana. I found a need, was able to create a solution, bring that solution to help other people. That's one of the reasons I'm doing what I'm doing with medical marijuana. I was living in New York City. I moved to Colorado to get closer to the industry, to get closer to the plant, to have safe, legal access to it. And then the opportunity in Connecticut came about where it was a very restricted type of a model. And I think that what I really want to emphasize here is the new industries that are popping up across all the states. You hear about more and more states happening. It is a very strict regulatory format that each one of these states are enacting. And that's what you're going to start seeing more and more happening. You're not going to see the Colorados, you're not going to see the Californias, you're going to see more of the Connecticut's, Illinois, Massachusetts. Those are the structures that you're going to see, and I believe that those are the structures that are going to foster the science and the research. This is our facility in Connecticut. We repurposed a 60,000 square foot facility on 10 acres of land. Our phase 1 included building out 35,000 square feet. The construction took place over the course of roughly 6 months, although we were built out a small location inside the facility to be able to grow right away. Safety and security is paramount at Theraplant. It's not in the statutes to have bulletproof glass, but our security guards are behind that. When you enter, we have an eye-lock system for all guards, for all employees to get in. All doors are key-carded to restrict access. So if you're a gardener, you're not allowed in the processing room. If you're an extraction person, you're not allowed in the flower rooms. All of that is on 24/7 security monitoring. We have a 24/7 security staff on site. There are over 130 cameras on 35,000 square feet. A little bit about the process. Vegetation, we start with clones, or one of the new technologies that's coming out is tissue culture. From there they go into flower, and from there the harvest. What you'll see in our facility is much more of a laboratory type setting than the settings you would find in a typical grow coming out of Colorado and California. Our experts perfected their technique while they were in Colorado, and they brought that expertise here. We are operating much more of a pharmaceutical type environment now, where everyone is in lab coats, pocketless attire, everything is handled wearing gloves. Mandatory testing is starting to come up across all the states, and I think that's essential. When you have that mandatory testing, you have a quality product that you absolutely know what you're getting in. If you've reading the news recently, you've seen in Colorado they randomly tested 10 of the dispensaries, the more popular ones in the state. They all tested positive for heavy metals and pesticides and Eagle 20, which is a very harsh type of a pesticide. So all of the medicine that is on the black market, that is on the streets, would not pass the strict standards that are now in this new emerging industry of medical marijuana. I would say 90% of the product in California, Colorado would not pass testing in Connecticut. And I think that's a good thing, because ultimately the patient's health is what we're talking about. And ultimately what we're talking about is doctors having another medicine that is a non-lethal, safe, natural alternative. I guess we could. So as far as the different products, medical marijuana, I believe, is the future of medicine, but within the medical marijuana industry are more of the extracts and the standardization of dosing. Most physicians that I talk to that are against the medicine are against it for very real reasons. And one of the main criticisms they have is no standardization of dosing. That standardization of dosing is being taken care of with some of the extracts that are coming out now and the mandatory testing. Once you have those in place, now you can start doing actual trials. Once those trials can happen, now you can actually have patented and approved medications. A little bit about the program in Connecticut. It's run by the Department of Consumer Protection. It was Jonathan Harris is the commissioner now. It was William Rubenstein when he put the program together. They worked over a very long period of time to put this together. It is a very strict program. I would venture to say at the time it was the strictest program in the country that was put out. There were only 11 conditions that were approved, and there were only 4 licensed producers and 6 licensed dispensaries. The 11 conditions, they are adding more conditions all the time. They have a board of physicians that review conditions periodically to be able to add that. The physicians review process, they have to go onto the DCP website, register, and then they themselves will register the patient once that patient comes to see them. Again, the patient would have to go visit a doctor, get the recommendation. That doctor would enter their name into the registration database. Then that patient would go on the Department of Consumer Protection website, provide the necessary pieces of information, and complete the process. 4 licensed producers, 6 licensed dispensaries across the state. The Connecticut, the producers did form an association. They did elect me as the president. Our mission is basically to encourage and educate the doctors and the general public on the benefits and use of medical marijuana. This is a brand new industry. If you're in it, you can't imagine that people are not aware of it, but there are plenty of people that are not aware that medical marijuana is available, that it's a safe alternative, and that they should consult their doctor. So why am I doing this? Why am I spending all my time doing this and talking to you guys here on a Sunday? I'm here because I believe that the medicinal value of this plant. I have seen it firsthand. I have lived in pain for the last 14 years of my life, and this medicine did help me. And when it did help me, I became very passionate about being able to show others that, done responsibly, this medicine can help people. This is an industry that is going to move forward. This is jobs for people. This is taxable revenue. And done responsibly, this is another tool for doctors. It needs to be studied. It needs to be researched. The only way that's going to be done is under responsible, very strict type of regulatory process. I am only interested in the medical side. I am only interested in going after the medical side. I want to do the research behind the plant. That is my sole focus, and I believe that the new industry and the industry moving forward is strict regulations, limited licensing, and the ability for the science and the medicine to move forward. One of the interesting components that's developed since I've started this is the whole opioid addiction epidemic that's happening in communities across the entire country. Jonathan Harris in Connecticut made the correct connection between medical marijuana being the only solution that is being proposed for dealing with this opioid epidemic that's happening. I think more and more you're going to start to see that medical marijuana is going to start treating this issue that is already decimating people's communities. There are studies now that show within the first you can see actually, so no one has died of marijuana overdose. In states where medical marijuana has come into practice, the opioid-related deaths decreased by 25%. That is a massive number within a first year of an industry coming. There is clearly medicinal value in this plant, and it definitely needs to be studied. I'm here because I want to be a responsible steward, and I want to drive this industry forward. So thank you, I appreciate it. Positive energy is something that I have lived my life by, and I believe that it has helped me survive the devastation that this injury has caused to myself and my family, and I challenge you all to try it in your lives. The next time that you're upset or sad or angry about something, do something nice for somebody else. Just force yourself to do it and see how you feel. Thank you. Any questions? I'll jump right in. I'm not afraid.
Sure. One of the things that's going to happen is we are going to have medical marijuana available here in Massachusetts pretty soon, and we're going to see that 25% drop in heroin overdose rates or opioid overdose rates. Now, at the same time, our governor and our attorney general are putting on this big public campaign. We're fighting against the heroin overdose rate. We're giving speeches to local communities. We're having questions from local community members, and we're going to make sure that overdose rate drops. And we all know it's going to drop. It's going to drop like 25%. And you know what's going to happen? All those politicians are going to say, see, I went out and I talked about how heroin is such a big problem, and we reduced the rate by 25%, and that's my work that did that. And it wasn't their work that did it. It was medical marijuana that did that. So please keep that in mind.
Yes.
Hi. So I had a question for you about your actual products. Not that I can get them or anything because I'm in Massachusetts, but so I was looking at your website last night, and you have a whole bunch of different strains you tested, and they're not the normal strains. I think they're numbered strains, if I remember. And then you also had your waxes and everything. And I was curious about your waxes in terms of just because it's kind of still debated, and I'm sure it will be, but you know, waxes that are made from butane, BHO. So there's concerns about, you know, did you get all of that out through the process?
No butane is allowed in Connecticut.
Oh, so you guys
CO2 only.
Oh,
It's much more expensive. You know, I could produce butane extract with, you know, $100 piece of machinery. My CO2 machine costs $180,000.
Can you get shatter from that?
You can if you have incredibly good scientists, which we have. So yes, we have been able to make CO2-based shatter.
Wow.
Yes.
Are you collecting any data as well? Number one, are you separating out any specific cannabinoids and titrating individually? And are you collecting any data as far as how it's helping specific patients?
Yes, the answer to both questions is yes. We're at still such a preliminary stage that we are just collecting data, but we are starting to do that. Absolutely. Yes.
So I've heard a lot about, throughout the day, about people wanting to do research, and all this research needs to be done. But I also heard that the Israelis have been doing this for decades, and my guess is they have some research.
Yes, they are much more advanced than we are here.
Why can't we just take their research, maybe filter it through an FDA, just start where they have already gotten to and take it to the next level? They don't see India inventing telecommunications so that they can put, they can build up. They just get cell phones, put up towers, and they're, taking the technology from the developed world and putting it there. Why don't we do the same thing with this?
So I think we are starting to, but the United States is very prideful and they're going to want to do all those trials for themselves here. I think I feel so fortunate to be in a situation. I already know the answer to the question. Does this help? Yeah, of course it does. Does it help more than a placebo or a sugar pill? Yeah. Does it help more than aspirin? I already know those answers. I feel very lucky to be on that side. But the United States is going to force all of those trials to happen again. But to answer your question, that does give us the starting point. It does give us the direction to already piggyback. And it will not take us, they're 10 years ahead, but it'll take us 2 years to catch up. The second thing I'll answer that question is, in New York, there are several companies in Israel that are going after a license. Yes?
Well, I just wanted to take a moment as a physician and respond. Political issue, because it's not as much an issue. Ms. Clinton, in my channel, is important. Recently went on record saying, what is possible, what is your position on that marijuana? She said, I think we need more data. My response to that is, if you think we need more data, you're not reading the data that's out there. We have 5 times as many studies on marijuana as we do on alcohol. 5,000. The data is out there. The studies are well designed. The problem is the total number of enrollees is because it's a federal Schedule 1 agent. That's studies that are limited here. The bottom line is, anyone who says there's not enough data isn't reading the data, or they haven't put it together. I think Ms. Clinton was pretty clearly trying to not get herself caught up. I can't respect that.
Yes, sir. Whoever wants to go first.
I'm sure you know. Good.
between sort of naturally occurring plant that seems to have, without any regulatory or scientific or sort of superstructure that's around the rest of the pharmaceutical industry, proven itself as a beneficial, or at least not terribly destructive product. And taking that and putting an entire FDA regimen around it to make it certainly a lot more expensive. And I can see from a sort of logical standpoint why you want purity. But on the other hand, if it's not hurting as it is, what would be the benefit of putting a sort of FDA regulatory structure around it?
That is the direction we're headed. When there is a national program, you will absolutely see the federal government and the FDA regulating the medicinal side of things, and probably the recreational side too. People think that recreational is going to mean that there's no laws and everybody can do it. It's actually going to be the opposite. It's going to be a ton of laws and a ton of regulation that's going to surround it. Yes.
Yeah, as I said, when people think about Schedule 2, they should see what the regulations are. If you have a Schedule 2 pharmaceutical company and you want to make a pharmaceutical, the regulations are so stiff that I'm afraid that most of the people in the business wouldn't be in. In 1998, I got a call from Jeffrey Gott. You know, I've been working for the first part, but I was involved with marijuana farm in Mississippi since 1972, and it's true. The amount of research, even in that year, it was immense. It's immense. And my question is this. Guy had the same problem most people do. In other words, they had the same single convention. You can't import or export marijuana. So what he did was he bought Orga-Farm. Orga-Farm was the operation run by Robert Connell Clark and a guy named Dave Watson, who had done a great deal of genomic research, and they had about 12 years of work in the Netherlands just doing it. They were allowed to grow, and they were allowed to do this kind of stuff. They weren't allowed to sell it, of course. Even though David Watson's name was really selling it, and he did better in order to rights. The thing was, because Jeffrey Guy couldn't get this stuff, he bought Orga-Farm and all of their stuff. And he, after 1998, between 1998 and 2005, he's got this place the size of football fields growing this stuff. And so I can say, whatever is happening in Israel having to do with stuff derived from marijuana, I would say that GW Pharmaceuticals, who by the way has a market cap now of $2.8 billion, probably has an extraordinary amount of scientific information. Are we tapping that?
I believe, from my understanding, the big pharmaceutical players are doing research, but they're keeping that research quiet until there's a federal ability for them to roll it out. They're not going to play state by state. They're going to wait until that federal program and then be able to unravel their research or come in and scoop up the companies that are operating.
They've got a lot more than we know about.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, 100%.
Oh.
Absolutely. Yes. Go ahead.
Do you think that, now I was watching the Sanjay Gupta week 3, and they had shown the patent for the cannabinoids, and the guy who owned it. Do you think that instead of descheduling it, they're looking to remove it from Schedule 1 and put it on Schedule 2 because they want to monopolize on this new research that they're going to now do when it goes to Schedule 2, and then monopolize on the medical benefits of it in the pharmaceutical industry, taking away from the profits of people who are going to help others?
You know, I don't claim to know what the undercurrents of the political motivations are. You know, I like to believe that there is a more philanthropic, health-based reason behind a lot of these decisions, but I'm not so naive to think that there's not. You know, this is a billion-dollar industry, potentially trillion-dollar industry. Are there big players that are going to influence those tides? Absolutely. We'd be stupid to think not. But I'm coming from it. There's medicinal value here. I want it studied. Truthfully, I don't care who does the studies. I would love to be involved. That's why I'm here. I just want to see people get healthy and people get helped by this plant. Yes.
Hi. So this is something that's pretty related to the goal of this conference, I think. Do you want to talk about either your own personal experience or just your own thoughts on starting out and obtaining capital to get going as a business owner? Because you were if I read that correctly, you were working 2 years in private equity. That pays pretty well. And I'm not going to ask you to necessarily, it's up to you whether you want to disclose, but how did you, did you seek, investments from friends and family, or, I mean, how did you get started to be able to start your business, and what do you recommend in that to people?
So we did a friends and family round to raise money, and then another round to raise operational funding. It's all private money. It is all private money at this point in time. We do have a bank that is fully, we actually had two banks that competed for our business. We were very transparent. We have a high level of security. All of our compliance or all of our books were in place, and we actually had two local banks in Connecticut won our business. Ultimately, we will get a line of credit on our building, so we will have traditional financing. We had to back into it. As far as someone who's being interested in getting involved in raising money, the picks and shovels is clearly the path of least resistance. Getting involved in the LED lighting, the paraphernalia, the extraction machines, even the auxiliary, the testing, the laboratories, the security,
The support.
the support.
Yeah.
There's all tech. I have one of the wonderful things about our facility. I'm contacted about 3 times a week by somebody who's developing a new technology in the industry, and they want access to our facility because we can touch the plant. And so I have aeroponics being tested right now, LED lightings being tested right now, different CO2 extraction machines being tested. All of those companies are private companies that raise their own money that are now trying to get involved in the industry. So it was a roundabout way to answer the question, but I would say best way still is private money. You're not going to get traditional funding. The privateers and the ARC views of the world, it's very expensive to get that type of funding and very difficult. Friends and family is still the best way. And I do believe that while we're in this time when it's federally illegal, but it's state legal, that's the limited opportunity where a small business owner like myself can actually take a shot at making a name. I can actually take a shot at building a brand that people like and trust and respect, then I can and be able to spread that. Yes.
If you have the product or the idea, the funding's out there in this industry. I mean, it's
Raising money has not been my problem. No.
and it's really not going to be a problem for anybody else. Even like yourself getting into the industry.
At the end of the day, we're still making a widget. So if you can run a business efficiently, it's not rocket science what we do, but it's a skill that has to be practiced and has to be honed and has to be overseen correctly and has to be operated correctly. If you can run a profitable business and you have an idea, then at the end of the day, you'll do fine. But it does take running a business. Yes, you have to have the idea, but you have to run a real business. Yes.
One of the things that you had a slide about that really disturbs me is that the state of Connecticut only allows it for what,
11 conditions right
11
now.
conditions. Now I have a family member who's got Tourette's, and that wasn't one of the conditions on your list up there. And we
Not
know
my
it's
list.
very, very effective. In fact, it's the only thing that I've ever seen that's been effective on Tourette's.
So there are a number of patient groups that have sought our advice, counsel, and support in being able to have new conditions being added. I have taken time out of my life to go advocate for them, to go testify for them, and I continue to do so. Yes.
Ethan, thank you so much for being here. One of the things that tagging with Bill's question is, my concern is, as a physician, why are politicians telling me what conditions I should be writing my recommendations for when they are not trained physicians? And I think we've talked about this, like going condition by people are people. They all need compassionate care, whichever state or country they're in.
You're exactly right, Uma. And I have suggested this suggested this solution to the DCP. And I think when they hear 1 or 2 conditions now every month, that they're not inundated. When they start getting 20 or 30 every single month, they're going to need a broadsword. You have and you're exactly right. This needs to be put into the hands of doctors. During this program, the doctors wanted nothing to do with the implementation of it. Now that it's here, they're saying, well, the pharmacists are involved. How come the doctors are not more involved? So now that it's here, they want more involvement. And now they are starting to speak up, and they should be the gatekeepers. They're the ones trained in this type of information. If you have a plumbing issue, you don't call an electrician. Why are politicians deciding medical issues? I do believe that is backwards, and ultimately that is going to change. But We're in the middle of the tipping point. It's hard to see the forest from the middle of the trees. These programs were put in a conservative environment where most people didn't want it, or they were more afraid of something new than anything else. To get these programs in, they had to be as restricted as possible. And that's what appeased the people who were against it, was the very strict conditions. Now that it's in play, and now you're seeing that it does help people, now you'll start to see it proliferate out. You know, we started with 500 patients, there's almost 4,000 now.
And I think with Georgia being the latest one that just added myocardial disease, I've not seen that as a classification in other states, which is kind of a free-for-all for people that don't know what myocardial disease is. Gives a lot of openness for the disease.
They're starting to trust doctors more and more. You'll see regulations coming out in Maryland, for example, that are almost across the board any condition. Leaves it totally up to the doctors. Yes?
I think you'll be glad to know that in 1986, when the Drug Enforcement Administration went through a rescheduling operation that went for a year and a half, everybody from everywhere was there. My company, Cannabis Corporation America, at the time of the patent of the decarboxylation, we were saying that since THC is that we should be able to have that as like the fiber, like the seeds. This is a commercial product. We should be allowed to go into the plant, take it out just like anything else. But of course, if we did that, we slip it to Schedule 2. But I'll tell you one thing we did do. We put in some very strong language that the business about whether it's good or not for the patient has to do between the patient and the doctor and nobody else. I'm glad to say that that was included in Judge Francis Young's actual statement at the end, when he said it was a very good therapeutic substance. I'm glad I had it written into it, but of course, the administrator, John Law, just turned it down. But at least it was put forward the way you said it in 1986.
I think we are clearly moving in the forward direction. I mean, I asked the question before because I already knew the answer. I don't think that there's any way we go backwards. There is no way that this industry is not going to take shape. I don't know about the recreational side. You know, but all I'm saying is on the medical side, 100% you will see state by state happening, and you will ultimately see a national picture. Yes? No? Okay. Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time.
That wraps up the programming for today. I want to thank everybody who came out and spent the whole day here. I want to thank especially all the speakers, many who traveled very far. And also, we're not compensated for this, so I really want to give them a round of applause again.